Hey, and welcome back to the leader tree, where strong roots equal stronger skills. And this is where it happens, where leadership grows. I am your host, Chris Miller, and today I want to talk to you about a very special subject, something that is going to serve you well in this world as a business leader if you understand it. And this is probably one of the most difficult concepts in the world to understand, because it's a behind the scenes player. So nobody gets it. But if you figure this out and you understand the way that this is working behind the scenes on your behalf or to your detriment, you can affect an outcome that will get you what you want in this world. So without further ado, let's get right into it. And today we are talking about the power of the subconscious mind. Here's the deal with the subconscious mind. It works independently from the rest of your brain. And it works on the basis of pattern recognition. Those two things combined can spell a lethal habit problem or a lifetime of success. Okay? Take somebody who's been rich most of their lives. Okay? And they go broke. They lose it all. Okay? Something happens. Unforeseen disasters take place. Everything is lost. Chances are they're going to be rich again. Something's going to go right. Things are going to put themselves in place. And they're going to find themselves back on top. Now, in the opposite scenario, take a guy who's been poor his whole life. And suddenly, maybe he wins the lottery or something, but he becomes rich. Maybe he makes a product or a service that hits it big and he becomes rich. Chances are, before that year is over, he's going to lose it all again and be poor again. Why is that? Why does that happen? And if you do a little research, you'll see that that kind of thing does happen. I mean, look at Donald Trump. He was a billionaire. He lost all his money. He's a billionaire again. Hell, now he's a president. But these things happen because of patterns. Your mind, on the subconscious level, works on pattern recognition. So it forms a habit and it keeps you on a certain path because it thinks that those are the things that you want. And it's trying to help you. You know, it's keeping you down sometimes, but it's doing that because it thinks it's trying to help you figure out what you want. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the way the brain works, and it'll make a little bit more sense. Okay? So forget about the subconscious mind for a second. Let's just talk about our conscious thought process. So things like sight, sound, touch, smell, things we observe, all of that stuff that's happening in the world around us, when we encounter it, when we see something in front of us, you know, open your eyes right now and just look at your room that you're in, and then close your eyes and just imagine what that room looked like for a second. And now open them back up and look at the room again. Okay, now do that same scenario, but focus on your feeling about the subject, right? Don't just say, okay, I looked at my room, because obviously the first time you're going to look at your room and you're going to study it real quick before you close your eyes. But look at your room, look at something in there, and then close your eyes, but focus on the feeling that you have. It'll be a little weird, right? You'll notice, I feel a little funny. And then you open your eyes again, and you'll have a strong sense of, whoa, right? And why is that? Why is that happening? Because you're flooding your conscious mind with information at that moment. You're flooding it, okay? Because now you've got it. You're looking at something and you're flooding it with information. Then you close that off, and that information flow has now stopped. And your mind is frantically trying to fill in the gaps and figure out what just happened. And then you open your eyes again, and that floodgate opens, and your mind goes, whoa. That's why that feeling is there. Because sights, sounds, smells, touches, things of that nature, they come into the conscious mind. And think of the conscious mind as like a big waiting room, right? It's like a big waiting room at a hospital or something. And everything just muddles around in there and just kind of hangs out, waiting to see if it makes it into the main part of your brain, which is the subconscious mind. Your conscious thought process is only about 20% of your brain. 80% of it is on the subconscious side, right? So between the two, because they don't talk to each other, the subconscious does not talk to the conscious, and vice versa. Between the two, there's a barrier. And that barrier is called the critical mind. And think of that like a bouncer at a door to a nightclub. Okay? It's over there saying, you're not in, you're not on the list, whatever. Right? So what happens is all this information gathers around in this waiting room. And if there's enough of that particular information to build up a little group, the bouncer says, you guys are cool, come on in. And then that information is able to go into the main part of your brain. And if not enough information gets in there, then it gets dumped right out, right? Because the boxer's like, get out of here. Right? You're like, go away. So that's how it works. An example is this. Think of a time that you met somebody new, let's say on the street, and you introduced yourself to them, and they told you their name just one time. They told you other things about things that you two have in common. Later on, you'll remember the things you had in common, but you won't most likely remember their name. Why is that? Well, because you had things in common that was enough information to group in, right? So the bouncer let those guys right in. But the name, you only heard that once. So it's just a piece of information hanging out by itself on the wall in the waiting room, and the bouncer kicked it out of there. There you go. That's short-term memory loss right there for you. As you get older, you find that happens a little bit more often, I guess. But, so that's how that works. So the conscious mind, think of it like a waiting area. And you can make some decisions there, but they're usually just spur-of-the-moment decisions that don't work out the way you want them to. The real decision process happens subconsciously. Okay. So now let's talk about the conscious mind. What is that? What happens to that information once it gets inside? It seeks out like-minded information, right? So let's say these common thoughts, these common traits that you had in common with that guy, right? They get into the room and they start looking for their group. They start looking for those common traits that they have, right? And they find that group and they go and hang out with that. And that reinforces those ideas in your mind. So, like I was saying earlier, if you have a tendency to be rich, then now you've reinforced that tendency. You've reinforced the idea that you deserve to be rich, or that you should be rich, right? If you have problems in general, those problems, if they get back in there, reinforce those problems, right? So every piece of information that makes it into the subconscious mind reinforces the information that's already in there, one way or another, good or bad. So, and it does that by your mind associates them as basically a positive or a negative, right? So, but it assesses them as what's known as a truth. If it makes it to become a truth into the subconscious mind, whether it's positive or negative, doesn't actually matter to your brain. Okay? It just says this is something that's established. Okay? So let's say, for example, you have a habit of wanting to start something, maybe a business or something like that, but when the moment comes, you chicken out, right? If you've grown that habit of chickening out when the moment is hitting you, your subconscious level of your mind says, okay, this is a truth. He chickens out when the moment happens. So even though when the next moment happens, you say to yourself consciously, I am not chickening out. I am doing this. This is happening. This time I'm going all the way. When the right moment comes and it's time to put your money where your mouth is, chances are you're going to chicken out again. Why is that? Because the subconscious mind works behind the scenes to gently correct you back to the truth that it thinks you want to do. Okay? It doesn't know it's not helping you. It thinks that this is what you want because you've done it often enough to where it makes sense. It doesn't think in terms of good and bad, right or wrong, positive and negative. It just thinks in pattern recognition. You've got a pattern of chickening out. So obviously that's what you want to do. It helps you accomplish that goal. It doesn't know that it's not a goal you would like to keep repeating. That's the problem. That's the problem. I have a friend of mine who works with battered women. And he said to me one day, he said, Chris, I don't understand. I work with these women all the time. They finally get out of an abusive relationship. And they fall right back into another one. And I don't get it. And they always blame themselves. And I don't get it. No matter what I tell them, no matter what they do, no matter what they say, they go right back into it. And I don't understand. And I explained to him this process. And I said it's a pattern recognition issue in the subconscious mind. You see, your subconscious mind can actually reach out to other subconscious minds. You have communication between you on a telepathic level with other people around you. You just don't. We don't have the ability to control it or even notice it. But that is happening. So, and it's been proven. It has been proven. It's people call it the law of attraction, things like that. But if you're wanting something enough, right, it will be somehow drawn to you. And the way that that happens is because as you're walking along the street thinking about that thing that you want, right? You're on the subconscious level, you're putting those vibrations out there, right? And then other brains are picking up on those vibrations with their own internal communication sources. And if the right brain happens to be near you that can help you with that, somehow you two start interacting and you don't know why, right? It's just a random chance occurrence. But the same is true when it comes to those battered women, I explained to him. Because let's say they've been in these battered relationships and been blaming themselves for it and blaming themselves for it. And they finally figure out that it's wrong. And they get rid of that person. Get rid of that bad guy. Well, then they go out trying to find a new relationship. But all they can think is, I hope I don't find another guy just like that. And every time they meet a new guy, they're thinking, I hope I don't find another guy just like that. Here's the problem with it. The subconscious mind doesn't think in terms of good or bad. It doesn't hear, I hope I don't find another guy just like that. All it hears is, find another guy just like that. Because that's the pattern. And it wants you to repeat your pattern because it thinks you want to do that simply because you've done it enough to where it says this is a truth. So the chances are they're going to find another guy just like that because that's what they know. It's really hard for a battered woman to get out of a battered relationship. It's even harder for them to find a good one right after. Usually takes them several attempts because they've got to change over time that pattern. They've got to change it. And they have to do that by reinforcing the opposite in their mind, by doing the opposite enough and getting enough of the new opposite type information into and past that bouncer so that it can grow and reinforce inside the subconscious. Hey, we're going to take a quick break, but as soon as we get back, we're going to talk about this again, and I'm going to tell you some other cool stuff. All right? Just a minute. We'll be right back.
Business owners, you don't need to wait for your customers to pay your net 30, 60, or 90-day invoices to get your cash. Call AmeriFactors and get the cash you need wired overnight. And there's nothing to pay back.
Head ball coach Steve Spurrier here. AmeriFactors is a fast-moving game winner when your business can't afford a funding fumble, providing up to 98% of receivables in as little as 24 hours to make payroll, hire new talent, or purchase equipment faster than ever.
It's simple. We buy your accounts receivable, and if those clients don't pay, we take the loss. You get funds based on your accounts receivable, not your credit, and most applicants are quickly approved. From $5,000 to $5 million, we can help. Funding business is our business. Our team and comprehensive services make us the best at what we do.
Call AmeriFactors today. They can take you from the middle of the field to pay dirt.
Call now.
321-360-7947. 321-360-7947. 321-360-7947. Hey, welcome back. This is the Leader Tree, where we discuss wonderful things to help you in your own leadership development. And today we are talking about the subconscious mind and how it works behind the scenes to keep us where it thinks we want to be, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. So how do we control it? Well, first you got to understand it. And the beginning of this the beginning of this conversation was about how to understand the way that it all works, right? So pattern recognition is the answer to that. So once you've established a truth about something, good or bad, didn't matter. You've established a pattern. Your subconscious mind is going to try to keep you on that path because it thinks that that's what you want from it. It thinks that you need to stay on that path because that's where you want to be. And it's trying to help you. It's not trying to hurt you. It's trying to help you. So what happens is, let's say, for example, you are on a path that's going the wrong way, but you want to turn things around. You start making good decisions, and you start going down a different path. Your subconscious is going to gently correct you back to the path of your pattern. That's why it's difficult to change, right? That's why it's hard to change, because you don't notice it. It happens over time. It happens slowly, imperceptibly. It's very slight, very subtle, because it's subconscious, right? And it will slowly guide you back to where you are. normally at. But there are ways to overcome this. And the way to overcome it, if you want to grow as a leader and you want to get rid of bad traits that you have, is to make a conscious effort to, one, recognize that it's going to happen, and two, decide to make that change stick. How do you make that change stick? Well, you got to do it different ways. You got to write it. You've got to say it. You've got to think it. You've got to live it. You got to do all those things repeatedly over and over again. Because, let's say, for example, I want to lose weight. I got a habit of being fat, right? I can take all the diets in the world, and they may work in the short term, but what happens is I end up being fat again. Why is that? Because I got a habit of being fat. And my subconscious mind tells me, hey, this is not who you want to be. You want to be this nice fat guy. I know that because you got all these truths in here that say you're a fat guy. If I want to change that about myself, it's hard to do. It's not simple. It's not simple because as I make good choices, I find myself making more and more bad ones over time to get me corrected back to where I was. And it happens behind the scenes. I can solve that problem by making the choice to eat healthier and eat less. But I also have to reinforce those thoughts, okay? So I've made the choice. That's 2 pieces of information sitting in the conscious mind, waiting to get in. 2 pieces of information aren't getting into the conscious mind, okay? That bouncer's not letting 2 guys in there. Like, nope, out you get. However, I take those 2, and then I write them down. And I say, I'm going to eat healthier. I'm going to eat less. Now I got 4 pieces of information in there. And then I say that out loud. I read it. Right? Because now I'm seeing it, and I'm saying it, and I'm hearing it. Okay? Now I've got 12 pieces of information gathered up in this little corner of my conscious mind. And the bouncer is going to let that in. Okay? You see how this is working? Now I do that and I make a point. I have to make a decision and make a point to do that every single day. Okay? Not only do I have to do those things, but then I have to actually follow through and act on it. And that's more information and reinforces the information I've already got in there. Now I'm growing a positive truth inside my subconscious mind. And what happens is this. Over time, let's say 27 days to a month, something like that, and I'm doing all of those things every single day, maybe even several times a day, maybe like each meal, right? My diet's going to work. I'm going to be growing this information in my subconscious mind, and I am going to build up a large enough group in that truth that it is going to cancel out the bad truth of me being a fat guy. It's going to overtake it. That truth is still going to be there, but it's going to be a weakened position. And my subconscious mind isn't going to keep correcting me toward that because it sees now this one's bigger. This is what I want established as a new truth. It's going to start helping me accomplish that goal. It's going to help me change at that point. And that will become my new truth. And I keep reinforcing that truth. And it will keep reinforcing my subconscious mind pattern. And then I won't have to worry about being a fat guy anymore because I have a habit now. I've got a pattern now of being a thin guy. The same is true with relationships. The same is true with business and money. If you make bad decisions, you can change it around. If you have trouble at work, you can change it around. If you're undervalued in your current position at work and nobody gives you the time of day because they don't think you've got what it takes, whatever the reasons are, you identify those things, make a plan to get them solved, write that plan down, repeat that plan, act on that plan, do it every day. You're going to make a change, a positive change, and everyone around is going to see that because your subconscious mind is going to reach out to theirs, and everyone's going to notice, even if they're not paying attention, just because you walked by them thinking about it. It's nuts, the way that the brain works behind the scenes. But you know what? You can call it God, you can call it universe, whatever you want to call it. It's a brilliant design, and it has a lot of power. Hey, look, everybody, thanks for joining me here. This is a difficult concept to grasp. If you want to know more about how the subconscious mind works behind the scenes to help you or hurt you, there's a great book out there that I wrote years ago. It wasn't actually a book. It was a lecture that I gave at a college a few times, and then down at Rollins College in Winter Park, Florida. And a few of my students there, they asked me to write it down. So that's what I did. And I put it in a book, and it's called Conquering the Mountain, Fighting the Fears That Hold Us Back by Christopher Miller. You can find it on Amazon. And there's a lot of information about how this all happens in that book. So feel free to go and get the book and look about it. I recommend the workbook edition because that way you can work through a lot of the tasks that are in there. And there's a lot of cool information in there that'll help you to identify the fear that you're having and figure out the root cause of it and overcome it. Overcoming it is the hard part, folks. Overcoming it's the hard part, but it can be done. You just got to change the pattern. And you can only change the pattern if you realize that you're living on a pattern. Everybody thinks that they're making their own decisions, but we're really not. No, we're living the same patterns over and over again. And if you sit down and think about it, you'll see I'm right. Thanks for joining me here at the Leader Tree, where strong roots build stronger skills. And it happens right here, where leaders are grown.